Welcome all. We are going to be streaming this on Facebook. So if you just give me one moment here, we're going to go ahead and start it for those that are unable to join us, or if you want to go back later and watch it. So it is preparing here for a second, but in the meantime, let me go ahead and welcome you all. We're just so very happy to see everyone today on such a special day that marks Sri Aurobindo's 149th birth anniversary and the beginning of a very happy and long celebration leading up to his 150th anniversary, as well as the 75th anniversary of India's independence. It's just been so amazing this weekend to see that all over the world, the importance of this weekend and this day is being honored through so many Zoom programs and Darshan gatherings. So truly a day for celebration and the coming together of a collective Sangha. So let us open this gathering with the Darshan message, and then followed by a passage from Savitri read by Nadit, who is joining us from Pondicherry, followed by a few moments of silence. We will also have with us a little bit later in this session, Alok, who is also with Nadit in Pondicherry. So the Darshan message for today. If we learn to live within, we infallibly awaken to this presence within us, which is our more real self, a presence profound, calm, joyous, and present, of which the world is not the master, a presence which, if it is not the Lord himself, is the radiation of the Lord within. The truth of ourselves lies within and not on the surface. Sri Aurobindo. And with this, I will hand it over to Nadit for Savitri reading, followed by a couple moments of silence.
Namaste. I will read today from Book 12, the epilogue, The Return to Earth. It is a passage that is not very often heard. Satyavan speaks first. Awakened from the silence and the sleep, I have consented for thy sake to be. By thee I have greatened my mortal arc of life. But now far heavens, unmapped infinitudes, thou hast brought me thy illimitable gift. If to fill these thou lift thy sacred flight, my human earth will still demand thy bliss. Make still my life through thee a song of joy, and all my silence wide and deep with thee. A heavenly queen, consenting to his will, she clasped his feet by her enshrining hair, enveloped in a velvet cloak of love, and answered softly, like a murmuring lute, all now is changed, yet all is still the same. Lo, we have looked upon the face of God. Our life has opened with divinity. We have borne identity with Supreme and known his meaning in our mortal lives. Our love has grown greater by that mighty touch and learned its heavenly significance. Yet nothing is lost of mortal love's delight. Heaven's touch fulfills, but cancels not our earth. Our bodies need each other in the same last. Still in our breasts repeat heavenly secret rhythm. Our human heart beats passionately close. Still am I she who came to thee mid the murmur of sunlit leaves upon this forest verge. I am the Madran. I am Savitri. All that I was before, I am to thee still, close comrade of thy thoughts and hopes and toils. All happy contraries I would join for thee. All sweet relations marry in our life. I am thy kingdom, even as thou art mine, the sovereign and the slave of thy desire. Thy prone possessor, sister of thy soul, and mother of thy wants. Thou art my world, the earth I need, the heaven my thoughts desire, the world I inhabit, and the God I adore. Thy body is my body's counterpart, whose every limb my answering limb desires, whose heart is key to all my heartbeats. This I am, and thou to me, O Satchivan. Our wedded walk through life begins anew. No gladness lost, no depth of mortal joy. Let us go through this new world that is the same, for it is given back, but it is known, a playing ground and dwelling house of God, who hides himself in bird and beast and man, sweetly to find himself again by love, by oneness. His presence leads the rhythms of life that seek for mutual joy in spite of pain. We have each other found, O Satchivan, in the great light of the discovered soul. Let us go back, for Eve is in the skies. Now grief is dead, and serene bliss remains the heart of all our days forevermore. Lo, all these beings in this wonderful world. Let us give joy to all, for joy is ours. For not for ourselves alone our spirits came out of the veil of the unmanifest, out of the deep, immense, unknowable, upon the ignorant breast of dubious earth, into the ways of laboring, seeking men. Two fires that burn towards that parent sun, two rays that travel to the original light, to lead man's soul towards truth and God, we are born. To draw the checkered scheme of mortal life into some semblance of the immortal's plan, to shape it closer to an image of God, a little nearer to the idea divine.
Thank you, Narad. At this time, I'd like to share a quote from the mother on the eternal birth of Sri Aurobindo. The mother says, now the question about the phrase I used with regard to the birth of Sri Aurobindo. It was on the eve of his birthday that I said about his eternal birth. I am asked what I meant by eternal. Well, naturally, if you take the words literally, eternal birth has not much meaning. But I am going to tell you precisely how there can, and in fact there is, a physical explanation or understanding, a mental understanding, a psychic understanding, and a spiritual understanding. Physically, it means that the consequences of this birth will last as long as the earth lasts. The consequences of Sri Aurobindo's birth will be felt indefinitely, so to say. Hence, I have called it eternal in a poetic way. Mentally, it is a birth whose memory will remain eternally. Across the ages, people will remember Sri Aurobindo's birth and the consequences it has had. Psychically, it is a birth that will repeat eternally from age to age in the history of the universe. This birth is a manifestation that happens periodically. That is to say, the birth itself is renewed, repeated, reproduced, bringing every time perhaps something more complete, something more perfect. But it is the same movement of descent, manifestation, birth in an earthly body. And lastly, from the pure spiritual point of view, one can say that it is the birth of the eternal upon the earth. For every time that the avatar takes a physical form, it is the birth of the eternal himself upon the earth. All this is contained in two words, eternal birth. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Vladimir, who will introduce an initiative that we've been working on and will show a short film.
Thank you, Narad, for this beautiful reading. Thank you, Radha, for this beautiful quote. Yes, we started a project which is called Discovering Sri Aurobindo, how people came to Sri Aurobindo, how they came to know him, and what impact it had on their lives, how they changed their perception, their views, their attitudes towards work and everyday life. And I'm going to share with you only clips, very short clips, like 6 minutes clip with 4 participants. Irena Tilievich, Gitanjali, Soumya Chakravarti, and Amit Gujral from Delhi. So this is just a combination of 4 different clips together, just to give you a sense of what we are doing. And it's very appropriate for this day. So let me project the film.
So I discovered Sri Aurobindo actually at the age around 45. And I never heard of Sri Aurobindo and the mother and Aurobindo before that. Being a social scientist who was very agnostic, first of all, being raised as a Catholic, and then at the age of 18, rejecting church, seeing it as an institutional form of, that was my perspective as a form of kind of dogmatic dogma, and I could not agree with it. And then becoming a social scientist and doing my PhD, I kind of disconnected from any spirituality. And then I didn't know much about Eastern spirituality, but I started to feel that something was missing in my life. And then together with this philosophical and mental restlessness with inadequacy of academia, I discovered writings of Sri Aurobindo. Oh, and that was true bliss. because he is a scientist, also philosopher. He spoke to my analytical scientific mind because I needed it. But then also opened my heart, my whole being, and that's how my journey into his teachings and philosophy and experiences and everything took over my whole being, and since then has guided my whole life, everything I do, how I live, how I breathe.
And so there was this summer magazine called Mangai Mala. In that magazine, there was a little write-up on the mother. Then my mom, after she finished reading that, she quietly got up and I saw her going into the balcony. She comes back in, her face changed, and I saw her. And she makes a very prophetic statement. She brings that magazine to me and she opens it up and says, "This woman will change your life." And I was like, "What? Who is this woman?" She goes, "I don't know who she is, but she's going to change your life." And that prophetic statement stayed with me for my life. Then I asked her, "What makes you say that?" Then she told me that I went to the balcony and a prayer came up welling through my heart. So the prayer was, "Lord, she's your child. Show me the way." And so she saw the sky filled with light. She saw stars sparkling. She didn't know what it was. And when she walked in, I actually saw her face glow. I knew that there was something deeper that was channelizing her to say this to me. And from then on, there was no looking back for me. I started off reading Life Divine, understood nothing of it, but I would read for hours and hours and hours. And my mother would actually come to me and gently say, "That's quite enough now. You've read enough. It's been hours together." And the same goes with mother's books. The beautiful writings of the mother, the education that she's given. I mean, words cannot express what it means to be their children. And so this is how I met mother.
The biggest contribution of Mother Aurobindo in my life is that nothing needs to be rejected. As they say, the place for everything and everything in its place. So that makes you very wide and tolerant. And the whole problem today of the world is the war of philosophies where everybody thinks that they are the best. And Sri Aurobindo frees you from that. My two problems were, what is this world about? It didn't make sense if you have to just be born and die. But you didn't want to also leave it and go to the monastery. So here was a path that combined the two, that while being in the world, you can, through this dance and music and academics and all that you love, you can realize the divine and you can be enlightened. So Sri Aurobindo was for me the first and the last, answer in my philosophical quest.
I mean, I've always felt that I have a connection to Sri Aurobindo before I knew Sri Aurobindo. I am in awe of what he has been able to achieve and bring to us. I think it's like he himself said that, one man's perfection can't change the world. He's done it for us. He's shown us that it can be done. And if he could do it, each one of us is capable of doing it. All life is yoga, or yoga is practical psychology, and you're living it. You're living it with every breath that you're taking. But what he's done is that you're conscious of what you're doing now. And even if you're not conscious, you know you have the ability to step back and be conscious. So, I mean, I feel blessed. I feel blessed that something in me was ready to receive this. It's actually, I think, the adventure of consciousness, right? Like the title of that book, it is actually that.
Thank you, Vladimir. This has just been an amazing project for us here. We have probably done, I don't know, 25 or 30 interviews now with community members and collaborators. And it's so interesting because we know so much about each other, yet at the same time, most of us don't know how each other has met Sri Aurobindo, discovered Sri Aurobindo, discovered the mother in the writing. So it's just been such a wonderful journey, and we just so appreciate everybody sharing. And we're going to continue this initiative for the next 12 months. And I see Dr. Alok Pandey has joined. I know it's very late in India for both Nodded and Alok. It's probably around 10. And Alok will be speaking on Sri Aurobindo, but Alok, if you wouldn't mind taking a few minutes up front and sharing with us how you discovered Sri Aurobindo.
Namaste. I feel at sea because, okay, in short, because the long story is there in interviews with Narad. But in short, I think the way the world is, the way things are, it always gave me feel of a sense of imperfection. This is not how things should be. My personal life was very happy. I mean, everything is wonderful. But just the way the world is, that made me always feel the sense of imperfection. And my constant question was that why is it so, and is there a way to change the scheme of things? And whatever I read a lot: Eastern literature, Western literature, of course, some translations of the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Gita, whatever is available here, Western philosophy, Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda, but everything seemed inadequate for the simple reason that at the end of the day, it was moksha. All leaving aside everything, at the end of the day, it's like individual salvation or mukti, which sounded to me an extremely selfish thing. Because my escape doesn't change the world. It sounded like, honestly, it sounded very selfish, because I felt it's, how can you go away and leave behind people who are suffering? So this was the quest. Well, to cut a long story short, I became an agnostic in the process, that perhaps there is God, but if this is how he has made this world and blamed it all on Maya or man's karma, then I don't feel a natural, worship for him. And and at the same time, there was no way out. So there was an agnosticism. At that point, I don't know how to say whether I discovered Sri Aurobindo or Sri Aurobindo pulled me. Literally, he pulled me actually, catching my hairs. In a bookshop, I was drawn in, and I was drawn, my sight falls, number of heaps of books. And I suddenly see one and only book there, and that is The Synthesis of Yoga by Sri Aurobindo. And the name itself did something. And opening the first page, All Life is Yoga. Well, it was very clear that this is what I am looking for. I didn't know what it means. So first time I understand. Later on, I understood that sometimes a phrase captures the essence of everything. So that time, just reading that made me feel that this is it. And that changed the whole life journey, because two things which especially made me feel deeply touched about Sri Aurobindo. One is that he is the first, what shall I say, yogi. Well, first yogi who actually gives you a coherent, cogent meaning of world existence, why it has come into being and where it is going. So he gives the whole map. And second thing, which I felt always intuitively, the logic of nature cannot stop with man, because everybody would say man is the ultimate and then moksha. So I used to feel that if man is the ultimate product of the creator, then his creativity is under question. This much I knew. So, so evolution has to go further. And when Sri Aurobindo spoke about the coming of a new being beyond man, that's what even today, if you ask me, what fascinates me so much is this whole idea of a new creation. All the rest is fine, it's good, it steps on the way, stages of the journey. But this idea of a new creation, which will be rooted in the divine, which will be a complete, unhindered, unobstructed manifestation of the divine, transparent manifestation of the divine in earthly life. That is something so wonderful. So that's what drew me. Just to complete it, because very often my own experience and what the mother has also spoken about it, I really feel that in a real sense, this yoga begins when at some point we recognize the mother. And mother says that one has to reach me after a lot of preparation. And it is so true. With me also, it happened like that. I read Sri Aurobindo, everything was wonderful, started some kind of practice, had experiences, wonderful experiences. But it is only after the coming of the mother that everything changed. So I think the momentous moment in this yoga is when the mother comes consciously, when we become conscious of her presence. She's always there. Sri Aurobindo and the mother, this is not the first time that this is a grand experiment going on. Earth has been made for that. And just to complete it, now, of course, I know that all of us, I'm sure, but for myself, I am aware that we have been with them, not today, but, for lives. It's a journey which is continuing through lives. And it's a great, wonderful thing to understand it like that, because it's a continuum. The journey of our journey has not begun with one life, and it's not going to end with this. So their work has been going on since long. And this is one of the things that the mother spoke. I'm just, carrying it towards the subject. I just thought we'll read some of the messages. The mother speaks of Sri Aurobindo's presence since the beginning of Earth history. Since the beginning of Earth history, Sri Aurobindo has always presided over the great earthly transformations under one form or another, one name or another. This is kind of my inner wish, that one day we see Sri Aurobindo's biography starting from the eternal and leading earth towards. He has given some hints, the mother has given some hints of their presence at certain crucial moments of Earth's history. We can see that in one way or the other. And so wonderful to see this connection. There is this constant labor which has gone into creation toward the manifestation of the divine. In fact, the very core that all creation is ultimately, creation is nothing else but manifestation of the divine, but on the basis of matter. And all evolution is a progressive manifestation of the divine. So the purpose of creation is to manifest the divine, and it happens through a process of progressive evolution. In our own life, individually, in a lifetime, we see that how we change, both in form, in terms of consciousness. And in the larger scale, it's through rebirth, through the great cycles, through the ages. Ultimately, it is the manifestation of the divine. And that's how I understand the great phrase, Eko Ham Bahushyami. The one wanted to become the many. So many, obviously, not like us many, but each one of us, when becomes consciously divine, not just conscious of the divine, but consciously divine in a material casement. And that's the purpose for which creation is. So Sri Aurobindo and the mother have always been here throughout the earth's history. And yet when they take a human body, in a particular human body with a particular purpose, it is with a certain divine intent. So very often, people asked about the mother that she's the world mother, so can they turn to the world mother and realize whatever they have to realize? And Sri Aurobindo would make it very clear that while it is true that the world mother is one, there are no two world mothers. But each manifestation of the divine each descent of the divine is with this certain special purpose. And that is like a mandate given to that particular bodily form through which the divine is manifesting. Like one of the places he says that, Christ brought love, Buddha brought compassion, and the Vedic rishis, they had a quest for immortality. They were also descents, involutionary beings from higher states of consciousness. And then she says, what did Sri Aurobindo bring? So she says that Sri Aurobindo brought perfection, which means a totality. So there is nothing which is left out. There is not one aspect or another. So he brings perfection, which is ultimately, in one word, what we are seeking, the fullness of being at every level, in every way. So it is through their personality, through their persona, because that has the mandate. There is another very interesting little sentence which has always caught my heart and eye and moved me to the core when I had first read it many years back. It's not there as part of the collected works, but it's there in the agenda. And it's something that the mother wrote to Satprem on 15th August 1967. Before that. And she says, it is the day of great amnesties, the day when all past errors are effaced. It was so powerful in its impact. And then the meaning of many stories that I had read as a child, they became so clear. The divine descent touching matter is itself a redemption, because a lot of things hanging around us, simply because matter is imperfect. It carries, it's by its nature, by its tendency, it repeats past patterns. And when the divine descends and touches the sheath of matter and everything that is connected with that, he literally cleanses it and brings in the new possibility. I am reminded of two little stories in this context. One is the story of Ramayana, divine descent. When Rama is crossing the river Saryu, he has been asked to leave the kingdom. And as he crosses, the boatman, Sita Mata, wants to give him something because he has taken them across, ferried them across. And she says that, okay, I have no money because we have to leave everything behind, but I can give you my golden ring, she's wearing on the ring finger. And as she gives it to the boatman, he says, this is too little. This is too little. And besides, I can't take it from you. Why you can't take it from me? He says, look here, we are in the same business and you can't give me the same business. We have to, we can't take in cash from each other. So she says, yet you must ask something. I must give you something. And he says, very simple, we belong to the same business. I have ferried you across the rivers, you ferry me across the ocean of the worlds. Now, this is called really the essence of redemption, which people believe, I think it's there in the Christian tradition also, that redemption through faith. And this is exactly what it means. In Sri Aurobindo's life, the similar incidents which I am reminded of is, again, narrated to me by the person to whom it was narrated by the one who had actually experienced it. And as the experience goes, there was this man, a Gujarati gentleman, and he had once an urge that Champaklalji is so fortunate to wash the clothes of the Lord. I wish one day I could get an opportunity. And as he is standing in the courtyard of the ashram, suddenly the window opens and Sri Aurobindo looks towards him and asks him by a gesture that, would you come up? He comes up and he is all, awed. And he says that Champaklal has gone somewhere. Would you mind taking my dhoti for washing it? And obviously his joy knew no bounds. He takes the dhoti, cleans it, irons it beautifully. By evening, he brings it. And that time, Champaklalji is already there. And he gives the dhoti to the Lord. Sri Aurobindo smiles at him and says, with this one act, I have wiped away all your past karmas. So it's very interesting story that you have cleansed my dhoti and I have cleansed your karmas. Champak Lalji suddenly has a thought, I have done it for so many years and the Lord has never told me this. Sri Aurobindo smiles, puts his left hand on Champak Lalji's shoulders and says, and yours too. Of course, it is understood. It is not, people sometimes feel that these are, some kind of belief, but it's so true. The same incident takes place in another way with Dyuman Bhai and the mother. So Dyuman Bhai once told to the mother that, mother, I don't know how to do sadhana. It's a very difficult thing. But by the way, he's a realized yogi and so many experiences so many people had. I myself know about his living in the intuitive ranges. So he goes and tells the mother, mother, I don't know how to do yoga, sadhana, concentration, etc. But I have an offer to make. But you tell me how to do this sadhana. So mother says that, well, it's very simple. Is it so simple? Yes. So mother says, you do my work and I will do your work. I will do the sadhana in you and for you, and you do the outer work because this is what you can do. You see, it's something very interesting that the Lord does not want us to do big things. The very small things, everyday things, from brushing our teeth to arranging a breakfast, arranging a flower, preparing a breakfast, communicating with each other, everything that we do every day in life. But all that he wants us is to do it as a conscious offering to the Lord, because he takes delight. He was so alone. That's why he had this creation. He was sitting alone in eternity. So he possibly felt, I must have a lot of beings like me around. But what happened? Something came in between us and him, and we all have gone our own way. And he is still alone, friendless as before. And he wants to be friends. See, this is the beauty of the divine, that the mother and Sri Aurobindo revolutionized many things. One of them is the traditional relationship between the master and the disciple. In a way, Shri Krishna also did it, but Sri Aurobindo made it very, very explicit. So traditionally we think there is yoga, there is a guru sitting on the pedestal. He's the master. You go there, he initiates you, gives you a mantra, gives you a method, practice it. Sir, what about my everyday problems of life? Well, that's your karma. Do the practice sincerely and you will arrive. But what does Sri Aurobindo say? He says, we do not use this word, guru, in this yoga. It's not customary to use this word. Why? Because guru is a limitation. Who is a guru? Guru is the one who brings light. Guru is the one who is heavy, where he is full of the fullness of knowledge, full of the power, fullness of power. But Guru tells you the way and you walk on the way. Time to time, he may give us a little bit, GPS systems. But Guru is only one relation of man with the divine. We can relate with him as mother who indulges to our dreams, our demands, our wishes. And Sri Aurobindo says that in the synthesis, and the divine mother likes it to be so that she can pour her heart of love. She is not happy if we are sitting with eyes closed in meditation, while she is there to give us everything. See, after all, it's a connection with the Lord. So we have to form that connection, the bridge. The Lord has formed it from his side. He is a father. Who is the father? Father is there as the ultimate security when children. Everyday life, everyday problem, they ask from the mother. But when they are caught by the police, Dad, please help me out. So fathers are like that, So he's the ultimate security. Mother speaks of this in one of her experiences of 15th August 1967. She says that as she stood on the balcony, suddenly, I think it is 57, maybe I may be mistaken about the year. But she says all over from the earth, there was rising protests and protests and protests. Everybody was unhappy. So those who feel today's world they are unhappy about, Please know that 50 years back also people were unhappy. And in Ramarajya time also they were unhappy, because unhappiness is the boon to the world. So that we seek. If we were happy in the world, there would be no seeking. So everybody was rising in complaint and protest and protest. So the mother tells them inwardly, of course, it's Sri Aurobindo's birthday. She says, see, it's not my day. It's the day of the Lord. So Sri Aurobindo comes and stands in front of her. She describes this experience. And she tells them, it's not my day, it's the day of the Lord. You protest whatever you want to do with him. And then she hears Sri Aurobindo say something very beautiful. He says, it's a very beautiful passage which I just want to read. Yes. There was a crowd. This is August 15, 1967. There was a crowd. And when I went out, there arose from that whole crowd a sort of something in between an entreaty, a prayer, and a protest against the world's condition, and particularly the countries. And it rose up in waves. I looked at it. It was particularly insistent. Then said to myself, today is in my day. It's Sri Aurobindo's day. It is such a sweet little incident. It should be Aurobindo's day. And I did like this gesture of withdrawal and put Sri Aurobindo in front. Generally, she says, put me in front and put me between you and the person. She told Sri Aurobindo, you manage this. It's your day. What a Leela this must be. Then when he came in front, when he put himself in front, it's like a divine thriller. What is he going to do? He could smash things with, with that golden power, that precious. It just takes an instance for the divine, for the whole world to vanish. But what does he do? He simply said, very simply, when he came in the front, he simply said, the Lord knows better what he is doing. The Lord knows better what he is doing. I immediately started smiling. And there came the same golden peace as in the morning. The Lord knows better what he is doing with his most perfect sense of humor. And everything calmed down right away. There are such beautiful instances. At another instance, when she goes and says, I have created a new world. These things have to manifest. She shows him everything. But she says, man is not ready. So he could see her impatience to create a new world. After all, she is the divine Shakti. She is moving thousands of years ahead. So she says, Sri Aurobindo looked at me, and with a beautiful smile, he simply said, be simple, be simple, be simple. And she said, at the end of all this, he says, be simple. So these are some of these beautiful mantras. Often people ask, we are going through all this crisis. It's not the first time, this crisis, and there is a lot one can speak about it. Every crisis, in fact, if you look at Savitri, there are three things always. There is conflict, there is crisis, and there is change. Between conflict and change, there is crisis. There is no other way to evolve. So this is one part. But very simply, it is the Lord's world. He knows better than us. And if he's taking us through this passage, well, this is the passage he has chosen for us. And then we live with that state of trust and surrender, which brings such tremendous peace inside. Everything is as if ironed out. And then to be simple, she explains, she speaks of this experience that how there is like Krishna dancing on the head. She sees that little baby dancing on the head and making it quiet. One of the first things of yoga, she describes her own experience. She had every kind of experience, adept in Buddhist yoga. She had realized the Kundalini experience. She had complete experience of the Patanjali's, that Raj Yoga, which is described in Patanjali's book, but the Raj Yoga as such. She had discovered the immanent divine. She had read a book of the Gita and she was an adept in the yoga of the Gita. With all this, she comes to Sri Aurobindo and says there is one thing which this physical mind, this mind which still continues to be active, that has to be made quiet. And Sri Aurobindo says nothing. She just sits by his side. She describes that experience after meeting Sri Aurobindo. And the husband is discussing, big philosophies and all that. And she says the problem was the husband always believed that world is a product of desire, and Sri Aurobindo said it is delight. But while she sat, suddenly she realized that all the structures, everything got slowly vanished, evaporated, and that complete silence she had regained just by sitting at the feet. So the moral of the story is stay away from philosophical discussions and debates and sit at the feet of the Lord. This is what one of the meanings of the Upanishad is this. The knowledge that is gathered by sitting at the feet of the realized ones. Its other meaning, of course, is the heart of the inner knowledge. But this is so beautiful, so simple, to just sit at the feet of the Lord and let that light, that peace descend, and absolutely everything becomes still. Right in the middle of the battlefield, right in the middle of the chaos. This is the gift they have. Sometimes people ask, what has Sri Aurobindo given to this world? And by that they mean hospitals and buildings and charitable trusts. Thankfully, he has done none of those things because there are hundreds of people who can do those things. What he has given to this world is to start with the peace that surpasses all understanding, the joy that is the baptism of the soul, love unconditional, compassion beyond measure, and a hope that can never die. So these are just some of the gifts. Of course, there are plenty, and we did not speak about that. I'll close with just a couple of messages. One of them was a message given for the centenary year, 15th August 1972. It is relevant today because it was given for 1971, just like today we have the 150th anniversary, so 149th year. Today is the first day of Sri Aurobindo's centenary year. Though he has left his body, he is still with us, alive and active. The life, even a human being's life, does not depend upon the body. Life is everywhere, in all the planes. In fact, there is nothing but life. Death is only an appearance and a passage. So when people say that Sri Aurobindo was born on 15th August 1872, and I don't want to use the word, he left his body or sometimes departed on 5th December 1950, they need to remember that where will the Lord depart? If the Lord were to depart, this world will collapse. We would not be living here anymore. If he departs, everything departs. In every atom of existence, he is present. So she says, he is still with us, alive and active. Sri Aurobindo belongs to the future. He has come from the future. He is the messenger of the future. He still shows us the way to follow in order to hasten the realization of a glorious future fashioned by the divine will. So who is fashioning this future? Thankfully, not our human wishes, our human hopes. We always want everything in the world which continues status quo according to my planning, but I won't change. And the Lord says the world will change according to the divine will, and you also change. When we change according to the divine will, then the world changes because there is an interconnectedness in a beautiful way. It is being led by the divine will, but it is given to man to consciously align ourselves to the divine will. This is the difference. Even otherwise, it will change. But when we consciously align to the divine will, there is a great delight in the process of becoming. And the last message So what we should have within us to, go through this journey? Two things. Sri Aurobindo has come on earth not to bring a teaching or a creed in competition with previous creeds or teachings. What are creeds? Goal is same, there are different paths. That makes a creed. I believe in this method, I believe in the other method, this is superior, that is inferior. But he's bringing something completely new and unprecedented. So there is no question of another creed. Something which has never been done before. Something which has never even been imagined and hoped before. A new creation, a new being. So how can there be any creed? But to show the way to overpass the past and to open concretely the route towards an imminent and inevitable future. That's why she said, what Sri Aurobindo brings, represents in the world's spiritual history is not a teaching, not even a revelation, but a mighty action direct from the Supreme. So what he represents is an action from the divine, which means it is something inevitable. He is not just a master telling us, giving us a method and a technique that you do it. I am told you, if you don't do it, well, too bad. He is doing it for us, and we have to just flow with that current, enter that current, allow ourselves to be carried, if I may say so. Sri Aurobindo does not belong to the past, not to history. Sri Aurobindo is the future, advancing towards its own realization. So while one side he has planted the seed of a new creation, of a divine life on earth, he is advancing towards its own realization. And finally, the last one. Thus, we must shelter the eternal youth required for a speedy advance in order not to become laggards on the way. What a powerful revelation this is. We are the laggards. We always thought that we are the great people. World is not, advancing. The world is advancing. It is being carried by the Creator through a journey which we cannot even imagine. It is shattering all our measures, all our ways of thinking. All the things that we normally associate with life should be like this, like that. They're carrying it through tremendously fast. This tremendously fast is something which is so evident to the eyes. Nobody can deny that the world is changing every decade in ways that we cannot understand, but it's changing very fast. And Sri Aurobindo says that it is being taken, carried through all this passage towards an inevitable divine future. But what we should have within, she says, we must have sheltered the eternal youth. And she defines youth as youth is always looking forward, the urge to progress. You want to identify an old man in a group, he will say, in our days, when somebody starts saying in our days, this used to happen, make sure that even if the person is 30, he is basically 80. And when somebody at the age of 90 says, you know what, I have done everything. Again, two stories come to mind. Vyasa has written everything. So many, the Puranas, the Vedas, so many of them are attributed to Vyasa. And still he wants to do something. And that's something he asked Narad, something is there which I think I missed out. He's fairly elderly by that age. So he says, you know what, you have written everything, but you have not written about the Leela of Sri Krishna upon earth. So that's how he writes the famous Srimad Bhagavad Puran. It's about the Leela of Krishna. Sri Aurobindo, in 1947, he is concerned more about when people would bring him, sir, you have written such marvelous books, please revise them and all. He says, I am occupied with the most important work, Savitri. And even then, even his leaving the body is a strategic sacrifice to hasten the whole process. This is called sheltering the eternal youth. And look at the mother. In 1968, she is, the year Aurobindo is born, she is, how much? 90 years. And in 90 years, ask a mother, you are the grand old mom. She would say, no, I want to give birth now here to a new city. the city of dawn. It is so amazing. I remember once Amal Kiran, a group of young monks had come to meet him, all in ochre robes, and Amal Kiran was 104. And these were all must be in 20s, 30s, renunciates of life, seekers after moksha. And they asked Amal Kiran for a message. I was present, witness of this whole thing. Now imagine at 30, 35, and people find it very great that, oh, he renounced the world. He never faced the world. What is there to renounce it? It's so easy to renounce the world and say that, you never grappled with the world. It's a sign of cowardice, not the sign of greatness. World means challenge. World means change. World means victory. World means the ability to absorb failure. World is delight. And to say, I have renounced the world. Sir, so sorry. One more person lost out of God's list of will. But he stands. They asked Amal Kiran for a message. Amal Kiran is sitting silent for some time. He went into a kind of trance and then he comes out and gives the message. It's a message given by the mother. He remembered it at that point of time. Forward, ever forward. Do not look left. Do not look right. Go straight forward. So powerful. And I think this is what we should remember now on this wonderful day and the year that is opening us. Let us not look left. Let us not look right. Let us not look behind. It doesn't mean we become insensitive. No, we are sensitive to all this. But we know that the solution lies there in reaching there. The sooner we reach, the better it is for earth and for mankind. The sooner there are human beings who can embody the new creation and the new consciousness, the greater the chances of earth to change faster. So with this hope, with this wonderful, you said that it is night in India. Yes. But how can there be night on the day the Lord is born? It's bright and beautiful and sunny and wonderful all the time because Sri Aurobindo is here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alok, and thank you for sharing a bit of your journey and how you discovered Sri Aurobindo and so many wonderful stories and messages from Sri Aurobindo and the Mother today. So very much grateful to have you on this special day.
Thank you. It's a joy.
So at this time, we do have 10 or 15 minutes that we would like to open it up to the community to share. And what we'll be doing is if you would like to share a quote, a passage, a short story, something that's maybe a minute and a half, so others have a chance to also share. If you could just raise your hand, there's a little blue hand at the bottom there. And if you raise it, then what we'll do is be calling out one name at a time. And as we do this, we'll invite you over as a co-host. We'll open your mic and turn on your video and ask for your sharing. So from that point on, you will be joining us as panelists. So if anybody here would like to share, please raise your hand, and we'll give you kind of a minute here to gather your thoughts, and again, a poem or thought or a quote or just some comment on today, Sri Aurobindo's birthday would be wonderful.
Namaste, everyone. Thank you, Alok. That was just so gorgeous how you shared so from your heart. I also, my first connection was when I still was living in the Netherlands in 1970. I read an article about Aurobindo, and it had Sri Aurobindo's quote, "All life is yoga." And the moment I read that, it felt like bells ringing in my universe. It's like I knew this is it. I didn't understand any of it, of course, but I knew it. And within a year, I was in Pondicherry. And then Narat read that beautiful quote, one of my all-time favorite lines in Savitri: all has changed, yet all is still the same. Lo, we have looked upon the face of God. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, since you are thinking about questions, what comes to my mind is this impression from one sadhak Anurakta, who in his dreams, he was lost somewhere in the bigger universe, in some galaxies, you know. And when he was met by those aliens on some other planet far away from Earth, he tried to tell them where he's from. And he was trying to explain about, you know, Roman Empire, about French Revolution, about Industrial Revolution, about wars on Earth, different kings, different politicians. Nothing ringed the bell for them. He was trying to figure out where that galaxy, where Earth is from. There were millions of galaxies. So they couldn't figure out where he's from. And then he said, Sri Aurobindo. And they said, oh, Sri Aurobindo, it is here. And they immediately recognized the earth. So this association, this universal association of our earth with Sri Aurobindo and evolution of consciousness, which earth embodies, is eternal.
Yes, please go right ahead, Uma.
I'm very happy to be part of this lag race for nearly 10 years. So I feel it's a family feel. It's not like I'm a participant. This is where I started my spiritual growth and my way towards Auroville. So my gurus, all I hear, Naradji, Alokji, Shradhaluji, though he is not here, he is our guru. So I like to read a poem, Symbol Moon, just a 4 lines, as Sri Aurobindo is really make his children to think beyond and to act beyond. So I want to read his poem in such a mood. Once again, thou hast climbed the moon like a white fire on the glimmering edge, floating up from the haunted verge of a foam tremulous sea. Mystic horned here, crossing the grey-hued listless nights and days, spirit silver craft from the ports of eternity. So, since we stay in the port of Sri Aurobindo's, it's a Sri Aurobindo port, Pondicherry. So I felt like sharing these 4 lines as a grace from Bhagavan, as I didn't have the chance of going to Dawn Fire today due to my health, but he gave me a beautiful opportunity to talk about his poem amongst you. So it's a grace, and again I thank La Grace for your real service to the children, those who are aspiring to grow in spirituality. You are giving a beautiful platform for each and every one of us. Thank you, Patilji, and thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, Uma, so much for sharing. And I guess, Dolan, we have you on the screen.
So this is Dolan and I'm from Calgary, Canada. So I really would like to first thank Lagres for this wonderful celebrations and for the wonderful talks. And I really appreciate all the endeavors that you all are doing for bringing Sri Aurobindo into the lives of disciples by sharing stories and for bringing in such wonderful talks. Today on this beautiful day of Sri Aurobindo's birthday, I'd like to share one of his poems, God. So here goes the poem, God. Thou who pervadest all the worlds below, yet sittest above, master of all who work and rule and know, servant of love. Thou who disdainest not the worm to be, nor even the clod. Therefore we know by that humility, thou, that thou art God. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolan. And Dolores.
Thank you very much, La Grace, to organizing this amazing gathering. Today is indeed a happy birthday to us all and special day, and to connect it with Pondicherry and have that light, which is right now glowing everywhere in the world. So I'm here from Pittsburgh, US, and I would like to read a poem of Sri Aurobindo that the mother so beautifully narrated one day, and you can all hear that and aroma as well. So here it goes, and kind of unites the mother with her voice and Sri Aurobindo with his message. One day, the little more. One day, and all the half deed is done. One day, and all the unborn begun. A little path and the great goal. A touch that brings the divine whole. Hill after hill was climbed, and now, behold, the last tremendous brow, and the great rock that none has trod, a step, and all is sky and gold. Namaste. Thank you.
Namaste. Thank you all so very much for sharing. And we would just like to thank all of you in return. This is a community and a community coming together. So it's not La Grace, it's all the devotees that show up here on every Saturday for New Perspectives, or Sunday evening for All Life is Yoga, or as Dolan came on, I'm thinking our Gita study group. And so we thank all of you for continuing to be with us, for participating and contributing to this great effort. And at this time, we have just a couple more things that we would like to do prior to closing. First of all, I would like to just make an announcement or two. This is on the evening of the beginning of Sri Aurobindo's 150th birth anniversary. We have a number of programs and events and retreats that we'll be hosting in the coming 12 months as a prelude to August 15th, 2022. And these include, first of all, a monthly La Grace newsletter that will be going out within the hour. It also includes a series of workshops on the 12 living principles represented in the Mother symbol, and a series of courses on the faculties of consciousness, and a number of essays on the Rig Veda and essays on Sanskrit and the light of Sri Aurobindo by Vladimir. And finally, the hosting of the 2022 All USA meeting next summer here in Greenville. So all the La Grace programs, as in the past, and all the events in the coming year will be in collaboration with our Integral Yoga community, with all of you, with our partners, and our partner organizations and associations. So at this time, Vladimir, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Radhe. So to close our meeting, we prepared a short film, 7 minutes, on Sri Aurobindo's life with pictures. Many of these pictures we received from Delhi Ashram, from Taradi. They worked on them and made them look better. So we composed 7 minutes, starting from childhood and ending with the end of life of Sri Aurobindo, with the music. And at the end of it, we will have a few minutes of silent meditation.
तत्सवितुर्भरमरूपं ज्योतिः परस्य धीमहि यन्नः सत्येन दीपये सत्येन दीपये ॐ तत्सवितुर्भरमरूपं ज्योतिः परस्य धीमहि यन्नः सत्येन दीपये सत्येन दीपये तत्सवितुर्भरमरूपं ज्योतिः परस्य धीमहि यन्नः सत्येन दीपये सत्येन दीपये ॐ तत्सवितुर्भरमरूपं ज्योतिः परस्य धीमहि यन्नः सत्येन दीपये सत्येन दीपये
We thank you all for joining us today and for coming together in joint celebration of Sri Aurobindo's 149th birthday anniversary. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you.